Hello friends, welcome to ProTalent and I'm sure all of you must be enjoying our studies with us. ProTalent is bringing good quality content for you. ProTalent is providing you a wonderful support by the name called Score Booster. Okay, so this Score Booster is a very important part for your preparation of your CLAT exam. So make sure that you take the Score Booster from protalentdigital.com. Today, I'm going to discuss with you a very important part called Quasi Contract. Okay, अब ये एक महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा है that many times people are finding it very difficult to crack this idea of quasi contract. Okay, so I'm sure we have been talking a lot about this word called quasi. So India is a quasi federal country. So what is the meaning of India is a quasi federal country? So we are as if, quasi का exact मतलब होता है as if. So we are as if federal country, like America is United States of America, while India is a Union of India. So जो अलग अलग states है, ठीक है, जो छोटे 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 अलग अलग states है, they can do something of their own, but when it comes to, we can say, all things, they are one, and that is called Union of India. While America, the states and the center, they are different, and they have a concept of dual citizenship. That means a citizenship of a state and citizenship of the center. भारत में ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. So we have a unique, but still our states, they demand independence. So law and order के मुताबिक high court of a particular state will have a more power in that state. Yes, so that means we are a quasi federal country. Okay, there are certain bodies which are called quasi judicial bodies. कैसी body है? Quasi judicial bodies. They are not fully judicial body. Okay, so they cannot punish in the sense put behind the bar, but they can put penalty, they can give a judgment. Okay, that is called quasi judicial. Which of the following is a quasi judicial? It is called NGT, National Green Tribunal is a quasi जुडिशियल बॉडी. सो इस तरीके के कुछ quasi वर्ड का यूसेज होता है. सो आज हम बात करने वाले हैं कॉन्ट्रैक्ट और उसके साथ quasi. Okay, so let's understand first what is a contract and what are the ingredients of contract. So we learn this. There are 5 things which are needed to make a proper contract. What are those 5 things? Number 1, there has to be a lawful object. Number 2, there should be competency of party. Number 3, there has to be lawful consideration. Number 4, the consent should be free. And number 5, the kind of the law is not expressly making certain things to be void. ये अगर 5 चीजें होगी तो वैलिड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बनेगा. ओके, कौन कौन सी 5 चीजें वापस याद करें? लॉफुल ऑब्जेक्ट, लॉफुल कंसिडरेशन, कॉम्पिटेंसी ऑफ पार्टी, फ्री कंसेंट एंड नॉट एक्सप्रेसली वॉइड. सो ये आपकी 5 चीजें इस पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन नंबर 10 ऑफ इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट में लिखी गई है. ऑल एग्रीमेंट्स आर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट इफ दे आर मेड बाय फ्री कंसेंट ऑफ द पार्टीज competent to contract for a lawful consideration with a lawful object and are not hereby expressly declared to be void. ये 5 चीजें उन्होंने करके रखी है. Okay, so these are the kind of, you can say, contract के लिए ये 5 ingredient है. कभी कभार ये 5 ingredient में से कुछ ingredient missing है, और जब ऐसे ingredient missing होते हैं then we say contract नहीं बना. But in certain scenario, one of this ingredient is missing, still it will be termed as a contract, and therefore quasi contracts are called constructive contract. Why are they called constructive contract? Let's understand that. ठीक है, समझते हैं. Quasi means similar to or bears resembles to. So quasi contract are similar to contract in respect of all contractual obligation. However, they are in a little different form. Okay, in respect that there is no formal agreement has been entered between the parties. Okay, rest of the thing remains same. Rest of the thing remain same. Okay, so there are no formal agreement. Okay, that is how the, you can say, quasi contracts are. So when I say a contract, it has to have a agreement and it has to have a legal obligation. And when there is only a legal obligation where parties have not agreed, ठीक है, बट स्टिल लीगल ऑब्लिगेशन अराइज होता है, ठीक है, तो उसको क्या बोला जाएगा? दिस इज क्वासी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. क्यों क्वासी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कहा जाता है, समझते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, यू गो टू आर्चीज शॉप. आप अगर आर्चीज शॉप पे जाएंगे, वहां पे आपने क्रिस्टल देखा और आप उस क्रिस्टल को देख रहे थे, ठीक है, और गलती से आपके हाथ से वो गिर गया. Then you have to pay money to the other person for the value. It will be termed as you have purchased it. Okay, this is coming from a very important principle which is called doctrine of unjust enrichment. Remember this. This is very important. In a quasi contract, there are no offer, there are no acceptance, no consensus ad idem, but there is obviously no intention of parties to strike a contract. Still, the law from the conduct and the relationship of the parties imposes an obligation on one party and confers the right to the other party. Now that means when a person is getting some advantage from the other person without a sort of agreement, without sort of offer or acceptance or consensus added in, that person, the person who has got enrichment, benefit, he should return, give consideration to the other person. So it declares that a person should not be allowed to enrich himself unjustly at the expense of the other party. Okay, for example, agar mano, let's say I have ordered something from, let's say, Domino's, and now let's say Domino's वाला आता है मेरे घर पे और बाजू वाले ने दरवाजा खोला and he said कि yes, this is for me, then that बाजू वाले को उस Domino's का पैसा देना पड़ेगा because he cannot get unjust enrichment. Okay, though he did not have any intention of getting into a contract with me, but still he has to pay money to me. Okay, or he has to pay money to that Domino's wala. Okay, so what are the quasi contractual obligation arises? It arises in 5 situations. कितने सिचुएशन में राइज होता है? 5 situations. अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं एक एक करके. पहला है claim for necessaries supplied to a person incapable of contracting or on his account. So we all understand a minor person, okay, or a person who is mentally unsound or any person who is incapable of doing a contract. So हमने सीखा था that ऐसा कोई भी बंदा जो is incapable of doing a contract like a minor or unsound mind का बंदा, then that person cannot do a contract. But to supply necessaries for his life when that person is not capable of contracting. So supply of necessaries will form a very proper contract and that will be termed as quasi contract. Section 68 में इसके बारे में बात करी गई है. So what is the example? Example is Akrosh supplies Bobby, who is a mentally unsound person, with necessaries suitable to his condition in life. Akrosh is entitled to be reimbursed from Bobby's property. बहुत ही सिंपल सा है. बॉबी की प्रॉपर्टी में से आक्रोश को पैसा मिलेगा. आक्रोश को क्यों पैसा मिलेगा? बिकॉज आक्रोश इज सप्लाइंग नेसेसरीज टू बॉबी. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपने सुना होगा एक अकबर था, अकबर के पापा का नाम था हुमायूं. हुमायूं की डेथ जल्दी हो गई थी. अकबर को संभालने के लिए एक बैराम खान करके भाई साहब थे. अकबर जब 13 साल का था तब उसके फादर की डेथ हो गई तो बैराम खान ने उसको पूरा संभाला. सो बैराम खान ने अकबर के ऊपर जो जो भी खर्चा किया होगा वो बैराम खान को मिलेगा. किसमें से? अकबर की प्रॉपर्टी में से. So I hope you understand this. Yes. So here what are the conditions to be satisfied? Number 1, minor or the person incapable of contracting is not personally liable, only his estates are liable. That means अगर उसके पास कोई estate नहीं हो, so we cannot claim money on that person. So an individual minor is not liable. The goods supplied and services rendered must qualify as necessaries. वो necessary का part बनना चाहिए, कोई luxury या कोई और चीज का part नहीं बनना चाहिए. Only reasonable amount can be claimed for the supply of necessaries, and such necessaries should be supplied only to person incapable of contracting or all his dependents. Okay, so ये चीज याद रखिएगा. These are the few of the conditions to be fulfilled in this first quasi contractual obligation. टोटल 5 है, उनमें से ये पहला सेक्शन 68. सेक्शन नंबर 69 क्या बोलता है? Reimbursement of a person's paying money due by another in payment of which he is interested. For example, let's say there is a tenant who is paying a kind of municipality tax. Municipality tax has to be paid by the landlord. Landlord should pay municipality tax, but somehow that payment has not been made, और उसकी वजह से म्यूनिसिपालिटी उनकी प्रॉपर्टी को सील करने आ सकती है. टेनेंट में फील कि सील कर दिया, so there is a problem. So he will be paying on behalf of the landlord. So when that person is paying on behalf of the landlord must reimburse the tenant. Okay, so Contract Act lays down that if one person who is interested in the payment of money which another is bound to pay by law, who is bound to pay by law? Landlord is bound to pay by law, but who is paying money? Tenant is paying, and then the former pays it, then he is entitled to be reimbursed by the latter. This is also known as कॉसी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. ओके, एक तरीके का कॉसी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो गया. अगर उसने खर्चा कर लिया तो उसको पेमेंट देना पड़ेगा. हालांकि टेनेंट और लैंडलॉर्ड के बीच में कोई रिलेशनशिप ऐसा हुआ नहीं था कि लैंडलॉर्ड ने बोला कि तू पेमेंट कर देना, but to avoid any kind of problem he is paying it. Okay, so that is how the answer would be. Coming to number 3, obligation of person enjoying benefit of non-gratuitous act. What is a gratuitous act? Gratuitous act का मतलब होता है कोई एक्ट जो बगैर पैसे लोगों के इंटरेस्ट के लिए किया गया हो, दैट इज कॉल्ड ग्रेचुअस एक्ट. नॉन ग्रेचुअस एक्ट जो ऐसा नहीं किया गया है. सो दिस इज सेक्शन नंबर 70. ये बोलता है व्हेन पर्सन डज समथिंग लॉफुली टू अनदर और डिलीवर्स समथिंग टू हिम नॉट इंटेंडिंग टू डू सो ग्रेचुअसली. ग्रेचुअसली वो नहीं करना चाहता था, ठीक है, उसका इंटेंशन था कि वो लोगों को मदद करे, बट इन रिटर्न ही शुड बी गेटिंग सम मनी. द पर्सन एंजॉयज द बेनिफिट देयर ऑफ, ही इज बाउंड टू कंपेंसेट लेटर फॉर द थिंग डन और थिंग डिलीवर्ड. ओके, दिस इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. अगर मानो कोई बंदे ने, मतलब आप अपने घर पे कुछ सामान मंगवाए हो, ओके, और बहुत सारा हैवी सामान है, और वो कोई कारण से जो बंदा लेकर आया वो आपके घर तक ऊपर तक चढ़ा नहीं पाता है, और आपके यहाँ पे जो वॉचमैन है, वॉचमैन बोलते हैं कि साहब मैं कर दूंगा, बट देखो फ्री में तो नहीं हो पाएगा. तो बोला ठीक है भाई कर दे, एंड व्हेन ही इज डूइंग इट you have to pay money. Okay, example is SM and Sons delivers a basket containing, you can say, any fruits to Mr. Kishore. By mistake, Mr. Kishore and his family consumes it despite knowing that the goods are not intended for them. So this unjust enrichment principle will come here. The family must compensate this company called SM and Son. Okay, so make sure this is very important. For non-gratuitous act, something which is done, it has to be reimbursed. Then the fourth thing is responsibility of a finder of a lost good in section 71. When a person comes across things which are belonging to another and takes them into his custody, he must restore it to its true owner. This is very important. It is his responsibility. Okay, A finds a purse left behind by a passenger in the bus. If he takes custody of it, he is under an obligation to restore to its owner. So when he found that purse, he has an obligation to give it to the owner. That is called quasi contract. और ऐसा इसलिए करना है that किसी की कोई lost good से किसी को benefit नहीं होना चाहिए. Okay, coming to section 72, liability of a person to whom money is paid or thing delivered by mistake or under coercion. So that means A and B jointly owe rupees 5,000 to C. A alone pays the amount to C, and B, not knowing this fact, pays 5,000 over again to C. Now C is bound to repay that amount to B because he got it by mistake, and therefore this is unjust enrichment. Okay, to stop this unjust enrichment, this is very important, and therefore this has to be done. पांच चीजें कैसी है which leads us to a quasi contract, क्योंकि पार्टीज को खुद अपनी तरीके से कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करने में इंटरेस्ट नहीं था, बट वी हैव टू कंस्ट्रक्ट, सो दे आर कॉल्ड कंस्ट्रक्टिव कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. कोई इवेंट होने के बाद वी डेवलप दैट दिस वाज अ काइंड ऑफ contract, and thereby this is called quasi contract. Okay, so there are 5 things on which this quasi contract works. Okay, so ये बिल्कुल ध्यान रखिएगा, इन्हीं के ऊपर से आपको एग्जाम में क्वेश्चंस आएंगे. लेट मी गिव यू दिस क्वेश्चंस. पहला क्वेश्चन, इफ अ पर्सन यूजेस गुड्स which are left to his care due to mistake by another person, he has to compensate to other person, and the person is liable to pay the price of goods when it is sold to him. Okay, अगर उसको कोई सामान बेचा गया है, so he has to pay money, and कोई चीज by mistake उसके पास आ चुकी है तो उसको उसका ध्यान रखना है, and he must compensate other person. A friend of X leaves a bag of rice by mistake in the house of his friend Y. Y's wife, thinking that bag has been brought by Y for the home consumption, start consuming rice. After 2 days, the mistake was realized when X comes to Y's house for taking away the bag. By the time 10 kg of rice is consumed from the bag, X demands the price from Y. Okay, can Y, you can say, is liable to pay? Y is liable to compensate X for 10 kg of rice because Y ने unjust enrichment हुआ है, भले वो by mistake हुआ हो, ठीक है, उसकी वाइफ को लगा that this is मतलब हमारा सामान है, she consumed it, that is pretty much okay, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, but then Y should compensate X. Okay, so answer would be B. Coming to number 2. One evening, a delivery boy from Messrs. K.T. Das and Company delivered a carton of sweets at Mr. Chatterjee's residence. The delivery boy told Mrs. Chatterjee that the sweets were ordered by her husband. When Mr. Chatterjee came home in the evening, he told his wife that he did not order any sweets. However, that is nevertheless, the entire family finished all sweets. Next day morning, the delivery boy came again to Mr. Chatterjee's residence and explained the mistake that the carton was not delivered, was not intended to them. It was for Mr. Banerjee. When Mrs. Chatterjee told him that they had already consumed the sweets, the boy, on behalf of his employer, asked Mrs. Chatterjee to pay the price of the sweets. So, is Mrs. Chatterjee required to pay money? Yes. So, Mr. KT and Das and company have no right? No, they have a right on this. KT and Das cannot claim, गलत बात है, they can claim, cannot claim, गलत बात. So, obvious answer क्या हो जाएगा? KT Das are entitled to claim the price. Okay, यहाँ पे आप देखेंगे बहुत इजी था, इसलिए मैंने पूरा सेंटेंस पढ़ा नहीं है, but you can read this sentence on your own and understand the entire idea that what is the right reasoning. And the question number 3 says, beneficiary of an implied contract is liable to the other party. Okay, similarly here the delivery boy from Messrs. Aishwarya Bakery delivered a box of assorted sweets to Mrs. Kamath, informing that sweets were ordered by her husband. When Mr. Kamath returned, that he informed that he did not order. Nevertheless, entire family feasted The sweet same है. Next day morning, the delivery boy came to Mr. Kamath's place, explained that was delivered to some different, you can say, address, but it was by mistake, it was delivered to Mrs. Kamath. On being told that sweets were already consumed, the delivery boy demanded that money from Mr. and Mrs. Kamath. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Kamath had to pay money. Yes, price can be recovered by Mrs. Aishwarya Bakery only from the delivery boy. Galat baat. Delivery boy and Mr. Kamath both have to share the responsibility. Galat baat. Mrs. Aishwarya Bakery cannot recover. They can recover, and therefore answer would be D. Okay, so these are the kind of questions which are coming on the Quasi contract. I hope this is very easy, and I hope you have learned it in a very interesting manner with me about Quasi contract. 5 इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें याद रखिएगा. लोगों को कॉन्ट्रैक्ट करने की इच्छा नहीं है, बट बाय डिफॉल्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हो जाता है, तो उस चीज को बोलते हैं Quasi contract. ओके, चलिए, ग्रेट. सो विद दिस आई एम क्लोजिंग दिस, बट आई होप यू हैव एंजॉयड दिस. थैंक यू वेरी मच एंड ऑल द बेस्ट.